Namaste once again, teachers. We move on to the topic straight away. And today's topic is the common errors made by students in board examinations and how we go about correcting it. So maybe we'll just move on, discuss some content, and then we'll be back to what tricks you people have up your sleeve to tackle such. So this is what I have noted from my side, not only in the school examination, even in the board examination, I feel that there are some presentation errors, right? When I say presentation errors, so many types of presentation errors are there, especially in our papers, economics, whether it is micro or macro, sometimes they come up with, table, no table, or too many diagrams, no diagrams. Sometimes answer will be in a big chunk of a paragraph. They don't underline the value points. All these are there. And when it comes to numericals, picking and writing the numbers, right? Item number 1, some 5,000, 6,000, some number would have been given, right? And then 2, 3, 4. So they will say, oh, ma'am, I just thought I saw this number, but I wrote this, right? So that kind of errors they make, errors of omission, right? Misordering is another major problem. They simply jumble. This is what I know, as sir was saying, this is what I know, this is what I have read, I will write only this, and then suddenly I remember something else, so I will write that. There is not a very big difference between 3 marks and 4 marks word limit, isn't it? 60 marks and then 60 words and then 100 words. Sometimes when they are asked to write the concept, we don't even mind the words. We literally don't count the words. We simply ask them to go and complete the concept, right? So the number of words might exceed a little bit. So that's not an issue. So for the evaluator, that becomes a major problem. Probably the child would have started writing 3 markers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 markers, and then suddenly the child will start writing 4 markers and 2 answers the child will write, then again go back to 3 markers. All this they do, right? So evaluators, it's so difficult for them to evaluate, and all of us are human beings out there, though there are so many people who check it, cross check it, and cross verify. It sort of becomes a problem. Students may lose marks. Yeah. So have you noted some such errors? Do they jumble up and write?
Yes.
They do, isn't it? So what is the remedy that you give for this? What is the remedy that as teachers you suggest?
Write in sequence according to question number.
Okay, what if I don't know? What do I do then? This 4th question, I need to really think. They start losing time, isn't it? 3rd question, I don't know. 4th question, I don't know. I keep thinking because the teacher has asked me to write sequential in a sequential or manner. So I'm going to sit and waste my time on 3rd question, 4th question. So what I tell my children is, see, for a 3 marker or a 4 marker, by now you should know how much space is required. Quarter page, half a page, whatever it is, you leave the space. You write the question number and probably leave the space. Move on. If you do not know 3rd question, 4th question, move on. Do the 5, 6, 7. Come back to this little later, right? So that is what I tell them, so that the sequence is maintained. Section A, section B, accordingly they will do it, leave some space, come back, and then they fill it up. So this is one simple thing that I suggest normally, and sometimes it works. In spite of telling, some people don't follow that. Till the end, they keep, and then towards the end, after 2 years of rigorous training, towards the end, then I start cutting marks. I say, I'll reduce mark, I'll reduce 1 mark, half a mark. And then they say, ma'am, then no, that will probably, give you a lesson. Then you will not forget, because when I keep talking, you don't do it, right? So if you're going to lose half a point or 1 point, probably you will remember well. So then they don't repeat it. So slowly we need to train. Rather, this is what I have been doing. Yeah, so that helps. That helps the student also to get an organized presentation, right? And the 20 minutes time that is given to them in the beginning, they'll have to completely make use of that time. They can plan their answers really well. Right? Board gives 20 minutes reading time, isn't it? They can plan. They can mentally start ordering the answers and so on. Though they're not allowed to write, they can plan the points, the way in which the ordering in which they can even start in the reverse order and do it. That's not an issue. Only thing is, it has to be in a proper order, right? So that's a major problem that I see even while evaluation happens. This becomes a problem if it's not sequential. Sometimes, something goes missing in between, right? Okay, so misunderstanding is yet another problem, especially in our subject. So what kind of misunderstanding can there be?
Ma'am, good evening, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Namaste. Please tell me.
Namaste, ma'am. Sudarshan, ma'am. Ma'am, actually, what misunderstanding students, as per my observation, what I captured, actually, for explaining a concept, we have to give lot of examples. For example, I'm saying, so what is aggregate demand? We can give an answer in a single line within a 4 or 5 words. But for explaining that, so I will used to tell in class. So, so if your income is it is individual demand. So if your family's income, it is added now. So your father, mother, brother, so like that, it is added now. It is aggregate demand like that. So if you add up the demand, if you add up the demand of some group of people, now it is aggregate demand like that. We are giving some examples, ma'am. But what the students they are doing, they are directly starting to write the examples. When they are seeing that question, they're directly starting to write the example what we given in the class. They are not coming to the point. So as you said already, so according to the mark, they have to write. They started to write the story. What are the things we discussed in the class? All the stories they are starting going to write. So this is another problem. So a paragraph not giving in a point. So this is maybe, so they are misunderstanding. So we given a lot of examples for understandability, not to write in exam paper. So this is somewhat high up.
Right. Okay. Okay. Any other kind of misunderstanding from the students' part that you have noted, teachers? Starting with an example and writing that is one thing. Yeah. So maybe the child has really understood the concept, but then is not able to answer pertaining to the question, isn't it? So what means what? Why means why? Sometimes I even tell my kids, I'm asking you, what is your name? You're telling me what is your grandfather's name, and then your grandmother's name, and then all your relationship, and then you're coming back to what is your name? Why? Yeah? Right? So probably we'll have to tell them how to approach the answers, give them more of a practice, regular, rigorous training and so on. Right? Time management problem, I don't think I have ever received. Very rarely, very, very rarely time management problem my children complain about. In this particular subject, I don't think, maybe math or something. Yes, accountancy also, when they calculate quite a bit, there they come out saying, I didn't complete the paper. But here, I don't think in economics that problem prevails. So is that right? Am I sharing the right thing? Have you heard of children not being able to finish the paper on time? Yeah, teachers?
They will finish on time, ma'am.
Right. Okay. 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 Fine. So these are some common errors that they may have. I have just listed few more, like not writing the subheadings, not following the order of questions, not showing the paragraph breakups, especially in Indian economic development, like when they are going to give theoretical answers, they really have to write the subheadings, underline them, the keywords, the value points, they'll have to underline them, right? I keep even telling my children, see, it's not enough if your content is going to be good. Dress up your content. Your content should be, really promoted well. Only then you're going to get better marks or the rightful marks for that particular presentation really matters, right? Okay, so that kind of chunky answers when they give up, somewhere the evaluators may miss out, right? So that's another major problem. Not showing the working or the calculations is a major thing. Sometimes, you know, in macro, definitely they expect the formula and then the steps and then the entire calculation and then the final answer. Even in the answer key, the board answer key, they say only if the final answer is given and the calculations are not shown, if the working is not shown, do not award marks. That's exactly what is written in the board exam key, right? The key that is scoring key that is sent by the board to the evaluators. It says, do not award marks if only the final answer is going to be written there, right? And the breakup is nicely given for the equation and then for the working, the step marks, everything is given nicely. So sometimes children, they may lose out in that. So from the beginning, I think we need to insist that they need to show all the calculations. And this is yet another problem nowadays, especially for 6 markers. What do? Is they give 2-3 subdivisions, right? What children do is they do not read all the subdivisions. They read only part of the question. The rest of it, they leave it out. They do not read the question in entirety. There are 2-3 parts given. Then simply they answer only the first, the second part, and then the rest of it, they don't bother about it. They think, oh, I have answered everything. Yeah, I have answered everything. For example, I can just show you something here. I have got this. Yeah. Okay. Fine. See, look at this one. There exists a positive relation between foreign exchange rate and supply of foreign exchange. Do you agree with this given statement? Justify your answer with valid arguments. Fine. So this was a question that was asked in the recent board exam. So I understood that probably the children saw the first part alone and then the latter half they left out. Justify your answer with valid arguments. So the valid arguments were not there. Fine, not all the arguments they were able to bring out. Most of the answers, look at that. I've got the students' response also for the question, the outline of the response, I've got it there. Increase in supply, then that would cause a decrease in the rate. So then that would cause a domestic currency appreciation. So it is false. Okay. So this is how they have written. Yeah. Now that you have seen the question and the answer, can you tell me whether that's correct? Is the student's response correct? Have they written the complete value points? Is that correct? What is asked? Whether they have justified? Yeah, teachers, there exists a positive relation between foreign exchange rate and supply of foreign exchange, right? Do you agree with the given statement?
With the curve, they can explain this one?
With the curve, with the supply curve, they've got to explain this,
Hmm.
isn't it? So how will they explain? They have written increase in supply.
So diagrammatically, if they are drawing the supply curve with the axis mentioned, and then they are explaining the diagram, so that will become even more valid, I think.
Okay, so what I would suggest for this is never explain this with a diagram. You may go wrong.
Okay.
Right? Because see, look at what the child has written. Increase in supply. Increase in supply is, the child is talking about a rightward shift in the supply curve. You get it? The child is talking about a rightward shift in the supply curve. Whereas what is asked? There exists a positive relation between foreign exchange rate and supply of foreign exchange. So what they are asking is simply about the exchange rate and the supply. That's all, isn't it? So they can give a numerical example for this, right? So they can simply write, yeah. So if one, yeah, yes, sir, somebody wants to say something?
No, ma'am, I'm accepting your point, ma'am. Yes, if it is they are explaining with the numericals, not somewhat good to.
Right, right. So if $1 is going to be 50 rupees, right? And then what do they say? They are saying that there is a positive relation between the foreign exchange rate and the supply of foreign exchange. So they are saying the price that we are paying to procure the foreign currency increases, isn't it? So that means $1 is going to become now 60 rupees, correct? So that is what is increase in the rate or increase in the price. So the question is only this, how this is going to affect the supply of foreign exchange. That is how the child has to look at it. So initially when $1 is equal to 50 rupees, now the rate has gone up. 60 rupees is what is required to buy that $1 worth of products, right? What will happen? What will be the effect now? They're talking about the move along the same supply curve, isn't it? They're not talking about the rightward shift in the supply curve. So this is going to make, think about the other country. What will bring in supply? Immediately they will have to start thinking about factors affecting supply, right? What will bring in supply of foreign currency? What are the factors that affect the supply of foreign currency?
A reduction in export.
Sorry. So what will give us supply of foreign currency?
Ma'am, what will give or what will affect the supply?
Yeah, what will affect? What will bring us more and more currency?
Exports.
Factors
By
affecting
export.
supply.
By
Exports.
exports of goods and services.
Yes, yes. And then probably investment into the country,
Investments.
right? For more and more tourists coming into the country, all these
Yes.
things will happen. All these things will happen, right? So think of the other country. Initially, for $1, the other country was getting 50 rupees worth of products from us. Now for the same $1, they will be able to get 60 rupees worth of products. So for them, our products will become cheap. They would love to import from us, or rather for India, India will be able to export a lot more to the other country. So that will bring in more supply of foreign currency. So when there is increase in the rate, there will be an increase in the supply because exports from the country, they are going to increase. So that will increase the supply. So this is the correct response that was given in the board. So look at the, at the end I have said, do not use diagram, use only numerical example because children get confused, right? There are two diagrams for this. The problem with this question is, actually there's no problem with the question. The problem could be there in the understanding. The child has not understood correctly what is asked. What is asked is the relationship between the rate and the supply. But what the child has understood is how the rate is getting affected due to change in the supply. No, that's not asked, right? See, read the question again. There exists a positive relationship between foreign exchange rate and supply of foreign exchange. Do you agree with the statement? Justify your answer. The child has to write, yes, there exists a positive relationship between foreign exchange rate and the supply of foreign exchange. For example, then the child can give the numerical and say, okay, $1 is equal to 50 rupees. And now $1 is going to become 60 rupees, or rather the rate of foreign exchange has gone up from 50 to 60. So this is going to make exports very cheap. So for the country, the exports will increase and thereby the supply of foreign currency into the country will increase. right? So that is exactly what they're supposed to write, or any other numerical example they may write. So the idea is they are supposed to write about the rate and the supply. Fine. So the Indian currency for the other country, it becomes, what does it become?
Cheaper.
Yeah. Yes. So that the Indian products are going to become cheaper. Indian currency for them, for the rest of the world, is going to become cheaper. So they are going to probably buy more of Indian products, or probably they are going to come into the nation more and tour more, travel more, any such factor you can talk about. So thereby, the supply of foreign currency will increase, right? So that is the diagram that they are supposed to make use of. One supply curve, and then the rate increasing. That is what they're supposed to show, right? I think I had this, yeah, this is exactly the diagram. If they are going to still write the diagram, they can use this. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. So this would be the diagram that they should give. But instead, I'll tell you what the children have written. Instead of this diagram, which is the right one, they have given the other one, right? They have given this diagram, change in supply. Fine. They have written about this one. They are writing the increase in the supply, and they are talking about fall in the rate and so on, and total confusion. There was total confusion. Children were not able to express that. So that is misunderstanding. The concept is not clear to them. That is why such an error was found. So this is a major area where children lost marks. So many, I'll tell you, I happen to be the AHE, right? There were around 4 evaluators under me. Randomly, I had to check around 4 evaluators' papers, almost around 25 papers in a day. So out of 25, 20 children have made this error, right? 20 children have made, even very good ones, they have made this error. So maybe you should tell them, if they are getting confused with this concept, it will be better that they make use of the numerical exam, because nowhere they have asked for the diagram. So why give the diagram and get confused with that? Isn't it? So they can give the numerical example, and then they can write. Yeah. So maybe that's one tip we can give them. So such questions, when they do not insist on diagrams, don't give the diagram. Diagram sometimes they mislead. Yeah. Okay. So tell me, when does the supply curve shifts to the right? When does it shift to the right? The child's response is there is going to be a decrease in the rate, increase in supply. When there will be an increase in the supply or a shift to the right?
Any factor, but not foreign exchange rate. Foreign exchange rate. Any other factor.
Any other factor other than the rate,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes.
That's exactly the way that is supposed to understand. So, but here they have asked the rate only, no. So why the children went
Yes.
wrong? So clear misunderstanding, right? The child has simply
Yes,
not
ma'am.
understood the question at all. So this is not even a hot question. It was surprising. Most of us were wondering why children have understood this concept in such a way. Okay. So this was one common error that we spotted. Then there is one more. Okay, so this question, there is this news article. Central Bank has increased the benchmark lending rate by 140 basis points. This was there in all the 3 sets, I guess. Identify the likely cause and consequence behind this action taken by the RBI. Right? And for this, children had written increase in lending rate, that increases cost of borrowings, it reduces the money supply. Is that correct?
No, ma'am.
Is that a complete answer? Is that correct?
No, ma'am. If the central bank increase the lending rate, means borrowing.
Teachers, can you please respond?
Ma'am, the question is the causes and the consequences. So first causes, we have to find it out. What is the cause behind increasing the lending rate? So obviously the cause might have been inflation.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Jaita ma'am. So the
Yes,
child
ma'am.
has written only about the consequence. Partly it is correct. But will the child be able to get full 4 marks for this question?
No.
Because the child
No.
has only answered part of it. Right? Identify the likely cause and the consequence behind the action. That is a question, isn't it? They've given the news report. Okay, and the question follows. The question reads, identify the likely cause and consequence behind the action taken by the RBI. So look at the student's response. The child is writing correct only, that is increase in lending rate, whichever rate it is going to be, bank rate or repo rate or any other rate. If it is going to be increased, then that will increase the cost of borrowing, and thereby the borrowings will become less, or rather the lending of the bank will become less. So that will ultimately reduce the money supply. Correct. Very correct. But that's only partial answer, right?
That is only
That's
the
only the
consequence.
consequence. Absolutely. That's only the consequence. What about the cause? Huh? So if you look at the answer key, it is made in such a way that half and half is given. For cause, 2 marks, and for consequence, 2 marks. Child loses 2 here. Correct? Child might actually know the answer. That's the worst part. Oh, I knew this, ma'am, but I didn't write this. This is what children always tell us, isn't it? Yeah. So that's, not reading the question in entirety. This can be avoided if they are going to read it and revise it and, slowly take it in and point wise if they're going to answer. This will be really nice. Cause, they can write the cause, underline, drop down the points. Consequence, this is how we need to even train them slowly. Yeah. So what could be the cause? Identify the cause. Why RBI is doing this? Why is RBI doing this? What could be the cause?
To withdraw the money supply
Inflation.
from the people, it is increasing.
Inflation is there in the economy.
There is heavy inflation probably. Probably the aggregate demand is pretty high. There is too much of expenditure. There is too much of money supply. There is inflation in the economy. So in order to correct that inflationary spell in the economy, probably RBI decides to increase the basis points. So they are following a tight money policy. They want to reduce the money supply in the economy and correct the money supply, isn't it? So that bit the children have missed out. So see, the correct response is the children should write about the cause and then the consequence. These are the key points that are expected. Inflation, high money supply prevails. AD could be more than AS. So any of that, we immediately give marks. So, these are words which I look in when I'm correcting my paper, even in school. I keep underlining. And then I see this is what I have done, right? Initially, I will do it. And then later on, I see this is what I'm looking for. So by now, you know that this is how I look for my key points. So you do it now. From the next exam, you're supposed to do it. You underline, right? I'm not going to do it. I'm going to look out for these words. So you mentally prepare your answer in such a way. Write a subheading, underline. It doesn't take a long time. I do not want you to do it with a pen or color pencil or anything. Just with your blue pen, you're writing, just underline. That's all. You need to somehow highlight that, right? So then cause, these are the words, keywords expected there, like inflation, high money supply. The moment the evaluator is going to see those words, they know, okay, the child has understood the concept, right? Maybe, grammatical errors could be there, spelling errors could be there. But the moment we see these keywords, we know the child has understood the concept really well, and automatically we start, giving marks. right? The flow sets in, right? Then consequence there again, cut in the lending rate will increase the cost of borrowing and thereby reduce the borrowing. That reduces the money supply and that corrects the inflation. So this is the chain that you're supposed to write as a consequence, and that they have nicely, perfectly done, but many children, they forgot to write the cause. So this is another area that was noted. Fine. Then this was, yeah. Look at this. In the estimation of GDP, using the expenditure method, focus lies only on expenditure by the residents of the country. Do you agree with the given statement? Give valid reasons for your answer. What do you think will become the answer for this question? What should be written? What is expected? What's the board expecting as value points for such questions?
Ma'am, first students have to explain, in their explanation, they may give a difference between who is a resident of a country and who are the considered as a resident of the country. First, they have to give the explanation regarding to that. So based upon that, that may be some additional points for this question, ma'am. So resident, the first, the board have to check whether they understand who is the resident first, exactly.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? That's only still partial answer, sir. That's again only a partial answer that you're pinpointing. Residents, yes, they will be able to identify the residents still. They're asking about something else. What are they asking about? In the estimation of GDP, right? They're asking about the domestic territorial income. They're asking about the domestic territorial income and they're specifying the method. So the answer should be pertaining to that GDP calculation using that particular method. Simply the board wants to know whether the child has understood, instead of saying what are the components under the expenditure method that should be aggregated to arrive at GDP. They're asking in a fancy way like this. That's also nothing else. They'll have to touch, the basic points. They'll have to write, okay, my GDP MP using the expenditure method will be PFC plus it would be the GFC plus it would be the GDKF and then it would be the X minus M or the net exports, isn't it? Now, out of this, they're supposed to come out with the final components. My PFC will include what? That will include the expenditure on the final products and services undertaken by the households and the private not-for-profit organizations. Agreed? Yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct? Right? Whether they are doing it within the domestic territory or there again, they are going to I'm going to go on a tour abroad and I'm going to spend there. I'm going to go to London for 1 month. Okay, and I'm going to spend there. That will also be included here, right? Whether it's going to be within the domestic territory or not, that's not a problem. As long as the resident is going to spend, right, the private final consumption on the purchase of the final consumption goods, if the money is going to be spent, yes, it will be PFC. Plus, of course, the GFC, the components has to be given. GDKF, how that composes of two things, namely the investment expenditure and the inventory expenditure, that has to be explained, right? Very briefly, all that has to be touched upon. This is the last bit where they have to concentrate on X minus M. Yes. So what is this X?
Export.
Exports, correct? Exports. And that expenditure is going to be undertaken by whom?
Resident of the country.
Somebody else, not a resident of our country. The country is going to export the products.
Oh, yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
So that will be the expenditure undertaken by foreigners.
Anybody else? Yes.
Isn't it? So that is exactly where the answer lies. So the child is expected to write these components, and though they are simply going to, very briefly, they need to explain about each one, PFC, GFC, GDKF in 1, 1, 2, 2 lines they can write. And this is a major part where they need to concentrate on the X minus M. Fine. So the X portion, it refers to the domestically produced products, but then it is bought by the rest of the world, correct? It is bought by the foreigners. So that means expenditure is undertaken by the foreigners on the locally grown products. So now come back to the question. Yeah, focus lies only on the expenditure by residents of the country. No, focus lies on, the household's expenditure, the firm's expenditure, the government's expenditure on the domestically grown products, plus, right? The expenditure undertaken by the foreigners on domestically grown products, which is X, right? So that is exactly what they are supposed to write. So in that process, they will have to again touch the basics. So if they recollect, those are the tips that I'm asking you to give to the children. When such questions are given, let them not get confused. Let them read it. In the estimation of GDP, okay, fine. I have to estimate GDP now. Using expenditure method. Oh, expenditure method. What comes to my mind? Write it down. Fine. GDP and under expenditure method, GDP MP will be equal to this. Yeah, very good. Then focus lies on expenditure by the residents of the country. Is it so? Let me think. What are the expenditures given there? PFC, GFC? Oh yeah. No, man. Last one, X. So I don't agree with the statement now. No, I don't agree with the statement. Look at that X component. X component is, the expenditure undertaken by the foreigners on the purchase of the locally grown products. Correct? That is a valid reason. That's all done. So the response has to be like that, isn't it? Instead, the child gets confused. Since it's domestic product, only expenditure by, why? You get it? Yeah, so even sometimes we get confused with such questions. So break down the question part by part, make this a habit. And even as you're explaining, discussing answers, probably if you're going to do that, they will slowly get into the habit of answering really well. So this is what was expected there. Yeah, the correct response given in the board answer key was like this: PFC plus GFC plus GDKF plus X minus M. So no, it includes consumption and investment expenditure undertaken by both the residents and by the non-residents on the domestically produced goods. Isn't it? That's all. That's it. So in between, of course, they can elaborate a little bit about PFC, GFC, GDKF, XM, what all that stands for. And by doing that, in that process, they will arrive at this answer. So the key word is both the residents and the non-residents, they will spend basically on the domestically produced goods. Yes, this was a correct answer, acceptable answer, right? Yeah, teachers. Any other way to write this? You tell me now that you've heard this. This seems to be comprehensive, right? Yeah?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Right. So this is what the board expects. This is how the answer should be approached and written. So we are going to train them on a regular basis. Probably they will also get into the habit of doing it. Yes. Okay. So for this one, probably you can tell me. This moving on to Indian economic development. Even here, children have not understood clearly. They have written some. As I said, when I ask you your name, you tell your father's name, great grandfather's name, your village, everything, and then you don't tell, ultimately you don't tell me your name. That's what many children have done for such question. Look at the question. Critically evaluate the role of rural banking system in the process of rural development in India. Now, the moment the children see this word rural banking, rural credit, immediately they think, rural banking, man, I know. Rural credit, yes. I've heard so much, I've read so much about the money lenders and the high interest rates, and they are all very exploitative. Let me write all about them. So for pages, they have written about that. But what is the expected answer for such question?
the demerits or the area where the rural banking is lagging behind, or on what
Ah.
basis critically.
Okay. Critically evaluate.
We have to criticize it, and we have
Exactly.
to.
So critical evaluation, even now, so many children don't understand that they will have to bring out both the positive and the negative points, right? So it is not just about, just the negative points or just the positive points. Critical evaluation will bring out both the positive and the negative points. Right? See, one last word, they are writing about rural bank. They say, okay, all the farmers, they suffer because they pay a very high interest rate, and then all that is exploitative practice. But then banks, when they come, they are going to provide cheap credit. So yes, that's all done. But what they forget to write about is the problem that prevails in the rural banking system. The question is about evaluation of the rural banking system, critical evaluation of the rural banking system. Okay, rural banking system, yes, it's very good. It's institutional source of credit, and then it provides cheap credit. All that is fine. But what is wrong with it? Children need to write about that also, isn't it? What is wrong with it? Is everything all right with RRB and NABARD and all these banks? What's wrong with the system? Yeah, teachers. What else should the
Inefficiency, they don't have lump sum amount to give. If the farmers, they are asking 1 lakh, mean they are giving only 50,000. Lot of
insufficient fund?
bankrupt, insufficient fund.
Yes.
Bankrupt, they are not able to return the loan amount. So these are the critical evaluation. Am I correct, ma'am?
Right. Correct, ma'am. Defaulters, willful defaulters, and then insufficiency of funds. Coverage is not very good, very low access. So many areas, interior areas, they don't even have banks, right? Post offices might be there, but the presence of banks might not be there. And even if they are going to be there, it becomes a major problem because there's so much of paperwork and so much of documentation and security and collateral. All these things are going to be required from the farmer's side to be submitted, and the farmers very small, and the marginal farmers, they may not have all those, and naturally they will not get credit, right? So all these problems they have to write. So the board said, okay, fine. The children have to write 2 points of merit and 2 points of demerit, only then you give them full 4, otherwise don't give. So see, children lose half, right? And of course they know the answer, right? Definitely they know the answer, but they do not know for what sort of question, what would be a complete answer, right? Yeah, the moment you tell them, oh, this is the answer, oh ma'am, I know the answer, I didn't write. Yes. So maybe we should help them out. We should tell them the keywords and we should train them.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay. So always tell them critical evaluation means both the positive and the negative points, right? And for this one, what is the point that we take home? The concept should first of all be
We
very
have
clear.
to divide the question. We have
Yes.
to understand, we have to think from the beginning, and then gradually with all the
Yes.
components, we have to divide and think.
Yes. When it looks so, like they need not think a lot for this. It's actually a very basic concept. They'll have to start from the meaning and then the equation, and then slowly they'll have to build up the answer. So for that, part by part, if they start answering the query, then most of the value points will be covered, and by the end of it, they'll be amazed to find out that probably they've got the complete right answer. And for that, they need to have concept clarity, right? They'll have to be very clear about the entire concept of GDP and the expenditure method. What aggregate, sometimes even now children make, errors. PFC plus EFC plus GDKF plus X minus M, what will that give me? That will give me, what do they write? NNPFC. Have you seen that? Yes. Yes, that's one common error, big error, right? How much of a difference is there between NNPFC and GDPMP, isn't it? Yeah, so through which method, what aggregate they are going to arrive at, they should know. So for that, the concept clarity should be really there, right? Okay, then we move on to a few more queries. Now you would tell me, I think, the next one. Okay, so this is the question. You tell me for such a question whether this response is right or wrong, complete, incomplete, whatever it is.
No, ma'am. Wrong, ma'am.
Not, yeah. So what do you think should be the answer?
In my point of view, for example, they first license Raj mean before 1991, if they want to expand, if they are going to produce different product, and also they want to get license. 3 reasons.
Why, ma'am?
One
You're
is
talking
to
about, ma'am, you're talking about the purpose for which license was given, right? For
Yes, ma'am.
expansion, for setting up, and that is still
Yes,
the
ma'am.
purpose. That is not the question. See, that is why they need to identify what is, the keyword there. This is the keyword. Explain briefly the rationale behind the license Raj under the Industrial Policy Resolution of 1956. What is the
Why
word rationale?
license Raj was, what is the cause that license Raj was initiated?
Okay. So that is a need, correct? Why
Yes,
it was
yes.
needed? Why the
Yes,
government
ma'am.
came up with a license Raj is the question. If the children are going to write about the different kinds of licenses and for what purposes licenses were there, and how Schedule ABC was, all that is some story only, right? Why the government wanted licenses to be implemented? That is a question, correct? So absolutely, it's a different answer, correct? What should be the answer for this?
Well, the worst experience of the British rule, so they want India to be independent, no private intervention, so that they started with licensing.
True. They wanted the protectionist policy because they've had enough of the colonial Raj. So they wanted to have good control over the industrial system. They did not want any private or multinational corporation to overpower. They did not want the private monopoly, right? A private monopoly or foreign monopoly is going to be simply the East India Trading Corporation came and then they became the rulers, isn't it? Right? And of course, our own country, we were there in the nascent stage. Industrially, we were not advanced. Whereas the French and the British, they had their revolution, industrial revolution, and then they had huge industries, competitive industries, and by no way our industries would have kept up to that kind of competition. So there was a need to protect our, babies, our infant industries. So our industries, indigenous industries, Indian industries were protected by the licenses. The government took up a lead role and it came out with huge investment, right? And it said, okay, fine, if private Indian or private multinational corporation wants to come in, then you need to get the permission, get the license or a permit, and then only you can enter. So that is what you're supposed to write more on, isn't it? So the correct response is the need or the cost for the license, not about the various kinds of licenses, right? So they'll have to write about the monopoly of private firms, how the indigenous firms are to be protected, and also the country needed socially useful products, not all the FMCG, which would bring more and more profit to the private. If more and more private units are going to come in, they will be on for profit, right? But this was a time period just after the colonial rule. The government had to provide a lot of welfare oriented production units because the people had to sustain. So much of poverty and underdevelopment was there. The country had to come out of the shackles of the colonization. So there was a need to streamline the production. So socially useful products were to be produced. So the government had major control and said, okay, nationalization, industry should be nationalized, isn't it? So this is what, these are the key points the children are supposed to write. It's there, ma'am, it's there in the book, right? Only thing is probably the children know this also, but then they do not know for such a question, what is to be written. So probably this word rationale, they do not know about the word rationale. Yes, that's what I thought. Maybe some children are not exposed to that vocabulary, so maybe they have gone wrong. Instead, if the question was explain briefly the need or the cause behind license Raj, then maybe they would have come out with a proper answer. What do you think? Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe.
Correct,
So-
ma'am. I did.
so, yeah, so as teachers, I think it is our responsibility to give them the alternate vocabulary, right? All along, if we teach them with the alternate vocabulary, maybe it will not be so difficult for them,
Yes, ma'am. Hereafter I will follow, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
right? Okay, so this is yet another question here. Indian economy has showed satisfactory progress towards formalization of workforce in the recent past. State and elaborate whether the statement is true or false with valid arguments. So look at that. The students' response. Yeah, the government policies, so many policies are there. So many unemployment elimination policy, self-employment policies, poverty reduction policies. So thanks to all those policies, it has created so much of employment. Okay, and some people, they have written, the moment they saw formalization of workforce, they have written everything about formal, informal workforce, difference between formal, informal. Okay, here they have job security, there they have no job security, all those points of everything, all that they have written. But is that the right answer? Is that complete? Yeah, please, your comments on that, teachers? Is it-
For formal sectors, what are the criterias? They are, we can differentiate between formal sector and informal sector, and also a labor law.
Ma'am, no.
Okay,
See,
ma'am.
read the
Okay,
question
ma'am.
once more. Indian economy has showed satisfactory progress towards formalization of workforce in the recent past. So what are they talking about?
Ma'am, it's about formal organizations, ma'am.
Okay,
The government started many formal government organization, whether it is true.
so what should be the answer? Please read
Ma'am,
the first.
answer is by formalizing the unorganized organizations, government is increased its GDP.
Sir, read the question again. Indian economy has showed satisfactory progress towards formalization of workforce in the recent past. They've given you such a statement.
Answer is false, because only 9 really it's correct. I don't know. Some 12% only formalized sector, remaining fully. So government, they didn't give importance to formalization. So the statement is wrong.
You're correct, ma'am. Absolutely correct. So, you know, they will have to write the statistics that is there in the textbook. See, all along in the textbook, we speak about casualization, formalization, and then we say, yeah, so much of private sector is there. Increasingly, privatization is happening, and the participation from the government side is less. Even in the private sector, if you see, you know, there aren't very many people who are working. And in the, see, they are expecting too much. I would say this is a big danger in our subject, because there is a very thin line which differentiates, the hot questions and then the current affairs questions in our subject, right? When we say some certain things, they say, no. As commerce students, as economic students, they should stay abreast with all the recent happenings. They should know that casualization is happening, and they should know that, of course, even in the textbook, the percentages are given as ma'am is pointing out. So they are supposed to say, no, the unorganized sector is only increasing. The percentage of self-employed has gone down. There are diagrams which proves that. There are statistics which proves that. They are not expected to pick up the statistics, memorize it and write it. The board does not want that. But the children should read it, they should understand, and they should know the trend. Isn't it? All of us have taught it, isn't it? Number of self-employed has reduced. Yeah, because the self-employed, they did not have enough money, enough funding. They did not have, especially during COVID, what has happened? There has been loss of jobs. Even small businesses, they ran out of their business, and since they did not have big skills, they were forced to become casual laborers. Isn't it? Yeah, that is what the board is expecting as an answer for this question. Yes. So partly the answer is even if they don't mention pandemic, it's all right. Yeah, but then the textbook, if you remember, there are, bar diagrams. There are also pie diagrams, circular diagrams, which gives them the statistics about the percentage of population engaged in casual work and the percentage of population engaged in the permanent work. And we see that there is a very big shift from self-employed to the casual laborers. So that's exactly what they're supposed to write. No, casualization is on the increase. There is fall in the self-employed and increase in the casual laborers. And the presence of unorganized sector in India is large. In spite of all the programs that is done by the government, this is what is happening. Yes, that is the right answer. Yes, now did I recollect all those, I think Jayanti ma'am also correctly mentioned the statistics. Yeah, it's there in the textbook, teachers, isn't it? So see from where they're asking just like that, and that's why Indian economic development might be easy to read. It'll be more like a story, but it's difficult to present. Yeah, the children have to really understand what is asked and from where to pick the answer and write it. Yes.
Ma'am, just a query, ma'am. For Indian economy, is Sandeep Garg good or NCERT, ma'am?
Both have to be followed. NCERT, it has a lot of examples that is there.
Yes.
Some terminologies, they are very important. But when it comes to statistics, the statistics that is embedded in the chapter, the data, right?
Yes,
Let the children follow from NCERT. Explanation, subheadings, all these things are really good in Sandeep Garg, right?
Okay.
So for teaching, probably we can make use of Sandeep Garg. For learning also, they can make use of it. The very good ones, probably ask them to probably go through the NCERT towards the end, because reading regularly 2-3 textbooks also becomes a problem for them.
Okay.
So let them follow Sandeep Garg for proper presentation and for learning purposes. We also
Okay.
use that only.
Okay.
And maybe for some, as I said, value points, which could be different. There aren't very many. But in few chapters, there are some words. For instance, even in this second chapter, right? India from 1956 to 1990. There are these two concepts that are explained in NCERT, which is not there in our Sandeep Garg. What is that? Minority sale, right?
Okay.
The minority sale.
Okay.
What is this minority sale?
Don't recall, ma'am.
Where less than 50% of the shares are going to be sold to the private.
Okay, ma'am.
Right. Well, yeah. So some 1 or 2 terminologies like that, like sometimes it catches you by surprise because it's not there in Sandeep Garg. So if we are going to refer to NCERT, That should be enough. Let's not confuse the children with too many suggestions. Not everybody. Some children who can handle 2-3 books, yes, towards the end you can suggest that. Otherwise, we would do it as teachers. I think we can refer to it and we can find out which one is better and where in whichever areas it's lacking. Maybe we can note it down and offer to them simultaneously while we are teaching the concept to them. That's enough, I guess.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
You people have a prescribed textbook, Nandini ma'am, Sudarshan sir.
Ma'am,
You have a prescribed textbook. What do you people follow?
In our school, we are following Sandeep Garg only, ma'am.
Sandeep Garg only.
Yeah, Nandini ma'am.
Sandeep only, ma'am. Sandeep Garg.
Sandeep Garg. Okay. Okay. So is this helpful, teachers, what we are doing today?
Yes, ma'am. Very much.
Yes, ma'am.
A few,
That is helpful. Almost.
few more. Can we just continue and carry on?
Yes,
to
ma'am,
this
it is
exercise?
very helpful.
Fine. So
We are
maybe
going to explain our children, ma'am.
Few more we would take it up and we will thrash it out today. Then you
Yes,
can
ma'am.
tell me what is your expectation for tomorrow, right? So,
Yes, ma'am.
right. Okay. So look at this one. In India, the self-employed constitute around 60% of the employees. The possible incidence of underemployment is the highest among the self-employed. As an economist, suggest and elaborate any two measures that may be taken to ensure more productive employment for the self-employed. Yeah. What are they asking? And what is the student's response? Where is it incomplete?
Ma'am, firstly, this is an open-ended question
Mhm.
because it's an
Yeah, it is an open-ended question.
what would be my suggestion, and it has to be supported with a valid point.
So what could be the valid point that they are supposed to write here?
First of all, according to me, one measure is that the government can give some financial assistance to the self-employed, or they can provide loans at some subsidized rate, so that even if, or they can just give an what to say, ma'am, the gestation period will be there enough for the investment and the profit to be earned. So that the government can work on something, if I'm not wrong.
Okay. Any other suggestion? That's right. Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So many self-employed, they do not have enough money to continue on with the business. So the government, if it's going to offer some kind of monetary support, that will be really a big welcome, isn't it? So that's exactly what is actually making them even give up their self-employment, and that is why they become casual laborers, because they are not able to continue on with their employment. Because of no money, no profit, they slowly give it up and then they become casual laborers. So that should be prevented. They're already self-employed, so let them be self-employed and let them do that well. So the government maximum, as ma'am correctly says, can give some kind of monetary support or loan or financial help or whatever. Yes, absolutely. That's one. Then any other suggestion? What else a child should write? What else a child is expected to write here?
That's what, ma'am. Second one, regarding that gestation period, that is when I'm taking the loan
Okay.
and repaying back, that should be enlarged so that I'm able to cope up with my business after the fixed cost.
Okay.
I'm able to recover and pay it back.
Okay. Now I want to do business, right? I'm really interested to do some business, right? But then I do not know how to go about, right? And maybe I'm very technically strong, so I know how to produce my products, but then I do not know where to go for money, where to go and market my produce, nothing I know. I am only a technically sound person. That's all, isn't it? So that is why probably the government should give them some kind of training, right? For promoting their products, for marketing their produce. It should provide them information about the finance and so on. So definitely the technical training, right?
Skill
So-
India, ma'am.
Yes, absolutely. So see, to ensure productive employment, the first point, as ma'am said, to increase credit support to the self-employed, that would, be a big support, and they will stay on. They will continue their business. They will not give it up. And as I was mentioning, or some people may have money. They may be having all the social skills, the networking. They will know how to, arrange for marketing, promotion, but they may not have the technical skills. So at least some basic technical skill they should have, isn't it? So provide them with a technical know-how, provide them with the probable areas, the feasible areas of starting the business. So all that should be arranged by the banks in tie-up with the government, right? So that would be really handy. So this one is actually a hot question. As you said, it's an open-ended one. It really makes the child to think. They will come out with creative answers. So any of those valid reasons should be considered, but then it should be very relevant to the area of query. Yes. So yes. So this they will have to definitely think about it. Okay. So maybe one last we would see. Okay. So look at this. This was, I'm not saying anything about this. Just read this and you tell me.
No, ma'am.
No.
National income and domestic income, they are dependent on the net factor income from abroad.
Yes.
So export and import are the secondary parts. Basically, we have to concentrate on net factor income from abroad or to abroad. So that is how it is has to be addressed.
So they will have to ignore for such questions, they get carried away with the first part. National income exceeds domestic income only when exports are greater than imports comment. And then they start thinking, what is domestic income? Okay, XM, they start answering. Okay, they miss out completely the second part. Actually, that is where the tip lies. National income is always greater than the domestic income. Do you agree with a given statement? Support your answer with a valid reason. So they will have to start their answer by saying the difference between national income and domestic income, as ma'am rightly pointed out, is NFIA, right? So if FIFA is going to be more than FITA, right, then the domestic income will be less. If FIFA will be equal to FITA, then domestic income will be equal to national income. And if FIFA is going to be less, then domestic income will be more, right? So this bit they will have to write, and they will have to complete with this bit then, right? Then they'll have to go to the first part of the question and say, national income exceeds the domestic income only when FIFA is going to be more than the FITA, and not because of the exports and the imports, right? Export and import, what are they? What are they?
Exports are considered in domestic income because we
Okay.
are producing domestically and exporting abroad.
Okay, net
Whereas
exports is treated, net exports is treated either ways in both, right? Whether it is domestic income or
Yes,
national income,
yes.
net exports is already treated in both. So that does not
Yes.
matter at all,
Yes.
right? So what matters is the basic difference between the domestic income and national income, which is NFIA. right? So that is how the child has to conclude, take a tip from the second part of the question, and they have to explain in detail about this. Then at last they will have to say net exports is anyway treated under both. So that is not, so this is super hot. This is actually, I think this is why in most of the cases it became a 99. There were many schools lost a centum because of this, I guess. Apart from this, there were some errors also, some other errors. Many children lost out in this. So many got 93, 94 because of this, right? We are saying the children might be able to understand, but given the examination conditions within the 3 hours, you need real fantastic clarity of concepts to take up such questions. So those I was wondering, because the moment exam was over, everybody was passing on messages in the WhatsApp saying, easy, very easy, standard paper, that this. I was, what? This was a tough paper. That was a feeling that came up to my head. Right. Okay. So this was one thing. Yeah. In what other way you think this can be approached? This one, alternate ways were also accepted. Along with this FIFA FITA, what other way can they approach this answer?
Ma'am, once more the question, please.
Yeah.
Domestic income means NDPFC, national income means NNPFC. From this point also.
Okay. That is what they are going to arrive at anyway, NFI, and then talk
Yes,
about
ma'am.
that. That portion is okay. How will they bring in exports and imports? That's my query.
If exports are more, we will be earning more. If imports, we will be, if exports are more than imports, so we will be earning more than we are spending. Oh,
So they will
am I
have to
right?
write this.
Am I right?
the
Am I right,
students-
ma'am?
Can you repeat it, ma'am?
Yeah. So what I'm saying, when exports are more, that means than imports, so we are earning more than we are spending.
No. They are actually, see, look at the question. National income exceeds the domestic income only when exports are greater than the imports. So they cannot write anything else.
Sorry, ma'am.
They cannot write anything else, isn't it? See,
Yes, ma'am.
they are, as ma'am was pointing out, they will have to probably start saying that NDPFC is what is the domestic income, right? And
Yes,
then they'll have to move on to NNPFC. Yes. Then they will have to bring out the components under this NDPFC. What are the components? NNPFC, what are the components? Right? What is the
NP
difference between these two?
என்ன
NDPFC.
பொய்யே என்ன பொய்யே
Absolutely. So that is what, so this is exactly what they need to talk about, right? And whether it's NDP or NNP, it will include all the income that is made by the normal residents, or what is the other one? Income that is made within the domestic territory, correct?
Yes,
What is
ma'am.
domestic income? That is income that is made by the normal residents and the rest of the world within the domestic territory, isn't it? Yeah. And what is national income?
The income by the what is it, that citizens,
Not citizens. Income that is
No.
made by the normal residents
citizens within the country or outside?
and outside.
Hmm.
From within the country and outside.
At outside.
Yes. So, so when it is exports and imports, then exports and imports will be covered both in domestic as well as national product.
National.
So the only concept which marks the difference between these two is this only. They cannot write it in any other way.
Yes. Okay.
Simply they are confusing the children by bringing out exports and imports here. So the concept clarity has to be really there. Otherwise, children will start, thinking on in terms of export and import, which has got no relevance to the second part of the question at all. Yes.
Yes,
After
ma'am.
answering
Yes,
to
ma'am.
this, they will have to write exports and imports are already part of both domestic income and national income. So that does not matter. Right? So when
Yes, ma'am.
exports is greater than the imports, domestic income and the national income, both of the, see, look at this bit. The students were right here. Can you see this bit? I'll just highlight this. Can you see this bit? Domestic production includes exports. So when X is more than M, domestic income increases. So national income also increases. Correct. Correct. But the only problem is children have not moved on to the second point at all. That's my, you understand? So this should also be there. This should also be there. And they should bring out the difference between NDP and NNP through NFI. So the correct response, this added with the student's response will be a proper, complete answer. That will be a more comprehensive answer. Yes. Of course, the board did not insist on this bit, but if the child wants to give a complete answer, what I would suggest is that plus this. That way no confusion will be there. The child will be able to cover every point possible for the query. Yes? Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So how would you train teachers now that we have seen some examples? So yeah, so I thought, do they find this? Yes, maybe such pointers you can give them. Not all of us have, children who have good vocabulary, isn't it? Sometimes we find a lot of local groups. How many ever times you tell them, the children, continue to speak in Hindi or in Tamil. They explain also to each other in Tamil or in Hindi. I said, don't do that. If you explain to each other, you talk to each other the subject in a certain language, in the same language, you will end up thinking even in the exam. And then you will lose your vocabulary. Have you encountered such a problem? Yes. Small groups of students sitting, one Tamil group, one Hindi group, and some other group, they will be seated and then, they will do some group studies. They'll explain everything in their language only. Have you seen that?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the problem in that system of group study? They literally try to translate everything, isn't it? So when there's going to be a literal translation, they will end up going wrong. Yes? Have you seen that, or it's only me? Have you encountered such a problem, teachers?
Yes, ma'am. They will discuss in their own language, comfortable language, and that only
Yes.
they will try to write it down.
Yes, yes. But unfortunately, most of our children, they are supposed to write it in English medium, isn't it? Right? That's their medium of expression that they pick up for the exam. They keep learning and discussing in their mother tongue or whichever comfortable native tongue, then they should be writing in that medium, but unfortunately they don't do that. Yes, so the essence is lost. Sometimes they miss out the points. So maybe you can give them these pointers. Examine. When the question says examine, it means to deeply analyze, isn't it? Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So elucidate would mean just explain or throw light. When it says comment, what are they supposed to do?
Give opinion.
Yes, they are supposed to bring in the opinion, both good and bad, right? Encourage them to, though only critically analyze, they're supposed to bring out the negative and positive. For comment also, they can write their comments, right? Whatever is their opinion, as they perceive it, their perception, they should bring out the comments, both the positive and the negative comments. Then justify. This is another very common word. Some statement might be given and then they will be asked to justify it. So they are supposed to show or prove it to be right, or comment on whether it's reasonable, whether it's right, wrong. Yes. And rationale, we just saw that it's a need, cause, or the reason. And then suggest. So mostly they will, it would be an open-ended question, as ma'am was pointing out. As economists, we're always asked to suggest, right? Give some kind of solution. There might be some problem, or there might be a small little case given. So solution might be asked, right? So that is when suggestions are right. Then what about this? Nevertheless, however, nonetheless, in spite of that. What will you say for such words when children spot these? Now we may think this is class 12. Why will they not know this? But believe me, children sometimes they lose such vocabulary when they see it along with lengthy questions, something they may miss out. So as they are reading, when they see these pointers, let them underline and think in that way. They will know the meaning for all these words, right? But they may not be able to quickly spot it in the question sometimes. It might help them. So when you're going to tell them these are the pointers, accordingly they will frame the answers. Yeah. What about the last one? When will such pointers be given there?
Ma'am, can I just say this one with an example?
You can even make up a question, ma'am.
The question is that the law of demand states if price increases, demand falls. In spite of that, or however, always it is not true. Proof.
Yes,
So
it's an
it
exception.
can be like that.
Absolutely. Perfect. So that's an exception, isn't it? Normally, this is what happens, right? But then, yeah, or this is what is the case, but then that could also be. So you're bringing in one, and then you're saying this is not the case all the time. It could be something else also. In spite of that, this has happened. Or I have been doing this, right? But in spite of that, this was a result. Yeah. So train up your children probably with all these pointers. I'm sure they will be able to do well.